Well, good afternoon, everyone. It is great to have you here with us today. It is with a great pleasure that we are able to provide this discussion that we call Let's Talk Leadership. The 100 Black Men of Atlanta wanted to embark on this journey to leverage the resources, the talent, and the incredible leadership that we have as a part of our organization and friends of our organization to share some nuggets about leadership, and some stories of some of the terrific, amazing leaders that we have in our organization and connected to our organization. So today is the first in a series of fireside chats and conversations with incredible leaders of our organization. And for those that don't know about the 100 Black Men of Atlanta, we are a mentoring organization with an illustrious 33+ year history of giving back to the community. Our members are leaders in the community, titans of industry that came together to lock arms and give back, because the young people in our communities, what they see is what they'll be. And we want to make sure that they understood the endless possibilities that they had in front of them. Our roster, we like to say, begins with Hammer and Hank Aaron and ends with Ambassador Andrew Young, with a lot of incredible people in between. And our cornerstone program is Project Success, where if our young people do what they say they're going to do, they attend class, they make the grades, they attend our Saturday school sessions and other supplemental learning opportunities, our promise to them is that we will help them pay for their college education. And just last year in 2019, our organization awarded $184,000 in tuition assistance to deserving young people, in addition to hundreds, if not thousands of hours of mentoring, of supporting young people at our robotics center in partnership with Dr. Lonnie Johnson, the inventor of the Super Soaker, one of the most prolific inventors of our time. We spend time mentoring our collegiate 100, helping them get ready to enter the workforce, and many, many other programs that our organization has. And we're just so happy to have you here with us today. If you have more interest in our organization, you can go to our website, www.100blackmen-atlanta.org, to learn more about our programming. And today is again a joy, because we get to have a discussion with the man, the myth, the legend, Chairman Thomas W. Dortch Jr. And so let's get into the program and let's talk a little bit of leadership. So as you heard, Thomas W. Dortch Jr. is the chairman of the 100 Black Men of America, Inc. He was just reelected to another term. I think this is his 6th term as a chairman. Is that right, Mr. Chairman?
7.
7, okay. So he has given a lot to our organization. In addition to serving as chairman of the 100 Black Men of America, Inc., Thomas W. Dortch Jr. is chairman and chief executive officer of TWD, Inc. In 1990, he became the state director and served as chief administrator for United States Senator Sam Nunn. Mr. Dortch was the first African-American to serve in this capacity for any U.S. senator. That's big. Some of Mr. Dortch's other accomplishments include Chief Executive Officer of Atlanta Transportation Systems, Inc., Chairman and CEO of Cornerstone Parking, Chairman of Landcorp Parking Management, founding the National Black College Alumni Hall of Fame Foundation, and co-founding the Georgia Association of Minority Entrepreneurs to fill a void as an advocacy organization for many minority businesses and business development. Mr. Dortch has had guest appearances on The Oprah Winfrey Show, The O'Reilly Factor, C-SPAN, and many others. He is the recipient of numerous awards and honors that celebrate his efforts. A partial list includes Ebony Magazine, list of the 100 most influential African Americans in the country on multiple occasions, the Atlanta Business Chronicle list of the 100 most influential Atlantans on several occasions. He also received the 2008 Community Service Professional of the Year Award, the 2008 Global Leadership Empowerment Award. He served on the Board of Trustees of Leadership Atlanta, chairman of the board of the Fulton DeKalb County Hospital Authority. 2010, he was inducted into the Atlanta Convention and Visitors Bureau Hospitality Hall of Fame. 3 terms as chairman of the Atlanta Business League, memberation of Operation Hope Board of Trustees, FAMU Board of Trustees, Talladega College Board of Trustees, Clark Atlanta University Board of Trustees, and chairman of the board of the National Coalition of Black Civic Participation. He's a sought-after speaker on the international, national, and national level, as well as to governmental entities, corporations, and educational institutions, including the Darden School of Business at the University of Virginia, Southern University, FAMU, South Carolina State, Georgia Tech, the White House Initiatives on Black Colleges, the United Negro College Fund, the Congressional Black Caucus, and many others. He earned his BA degree in sociology and pre-professional social work from the Fort Valley State University in 1972, and a Master's of Art degree in Criminal Justice Administration from Clark Atlanta University in 1986. He also attended Georgia State University as a Ford Fellow in the Urban Administration Program. Mr. Dortch received honorary doctor's degrees from Fayetteville State University, Jarvis Christian College, Fort Valley State University, University of Maryland Eastern Shores, and Livingstone College. And this past year, he was recognized by the Georgia Senate for his work in the community with the proclamation, a son of Toccoa, Georgia, a father, a husband, and a living legend amongst us. Let's welcome Chairman Thomas W. Dortch.
Boy, Kevin, I'm tired, man, from that one. But Mr. Chairman, my chairman, I want to thank you for allowing me to join you at this fireside chat. And I'm proud of what you've done. And being the youngest chair ever for the 100 Black Men of Atlanta, you broke my record. I was holding on to that for a while. But I tell you, I am really honored, and I commend you for your leadership, and proud to be a founding member of the 100 Black Men of Atlanta. So that's it, and I look at what you've done as our first president of our Emerging 100, and where that program has gone and what you're helping us now to scale that nationally. So I just want to say it's a pleasure here, and you know that while I may be national chairman, I am a member of the 100 of Atlanta, and anytime you, the board or the organization needs me, you can always count on me.
Thank you very much. And I know that is true because you have talked me off the ledge a few times and given me some good advice, and I always support her. So thank you for that. All right, so let's talk a little bit of leadership.
Okay.
So tell us, what does leadership mean to you?
Well, leadership also means servant, being a good servant. Because many people think that when you're in a leadership role, everybody is supposed to bow down to you or follow your directions. But I believe under leadership, it's about being able to pull people together, to be able to maneuver through what may be kind of a variety of talent, and being able to mesh that talent together. And one of my good friends, the late Dr. Miles Monroe, in his book on leadership, he said that real leaders don't seek followers, they inspire them. And so that's what inspirational leadership is, what I seek to do and be. But you know, in all of my campaigns, I always tell folks I'm a workhorse, not a show horse. And so when there are things to get done in terms of a leader, you don't sit around and complain about what wasn't done or who's not doing whatever. As a leader, you get in, you roll up your sleeves, you're working. It means working with your team or staff and picking up boxes, getting things done. You have to lead by example. And for me, that's what leadership has been for me. And I've looked at leaders from the earlier days of my career. I turned 70 in April, and I look at all of those leaders before and what they did. And then I look at the young leadership today, and you mesh that. And so for me, it's a combination of, again, making things happen for the right reasons, for the right causes, and also understanding that real leaders also create leaders. And so that's, for me, that's what it's all about, because that's how I've gotten to where I am, was observing, being a part of, volunteering, and that's been my pathway to leadership.
Yeah, and I've definitely seen you jump in the trenches to do what needed to be done, and I've also seen how much you want to invest in sort of the next generation of leaders. So we thank you for that, and you definitely walk it like you talk it. Tell us your story of going from a boy from Toccoa to leading the 100 Black Men of America and your many business ventures. How did your professional journey lead you to this moment?
Well, and right, I grew up, Toccoa is about 100 miles north of Atlanta, northeast of Atlanta. I grew up during segregation. I was in the last segregated high school class at Whitman Street High School in my city. Of course, the city inducted me into the Hall of Fame there. I guess they wanted to get rid of me. But growing up there, the one thing that worked for me, which has been a signature part of my life too, is that the adults, the African-American adults and white adults in the community didn't allow us to feel like we were the bad ones when doing segregation. And so we were always taught, it's them, not you. But growing up in that segregated school, I was taught with my colleagues, you had to have excellence without excuse. So when our principal will order new books, they'd take the new books over to the white high school and send us the used books. Of course, we got a principal from Chicago, he stopped that. But the teachers in my classroom, and the majority of my teachers came from HBCUs, said, look, the same thing they're reading across town, they may have new books. You can read through that tape, but it's the same information in these torn and tattered books. And so it was excellence without excuse. And so from there, at my junior year, I was elected SGA president in my high school. I played in the band. I was all-state basketball. And from there, because of my teachers, I was so inspired. My basketball coach up until my senior year was from Fort Valley. And my senior year was a coach from Florida A&M University. My math teacher inspired me. And so what I decided was I wanted to go to college and be a math teacher. And from there, because most of my teachers came from Fort Valley State University, the Fort Valley State University, it was a natural. My brother went 2 years before me. And at that time, 60% of all African-American teachers graduated from Fort Valley in the state of Georgia. So I went there, and this was in the late 60s, and saw the demonstrations and the leadership. Got involved there, became student government president for my senior year. And then from there, these phenomenal men from Atlanta, John Lewis, who's president for the Education Project, Julian Bond, the late Lonnie King, all of them are deceased now, Ben Brown, they came to my campus because I registered 96% of all the students on my campus to vote. And we said we were not gonna run for office, and we changed the whole trajectory of Fort Valley, where all of the elected officials were predominantly Black. And from there, I worked and then come knocking at the door. John Lewis and those wanted me to run for a delegate seat. When Shirley Chisholm ran, I said, okay, if you think I can. And they just said, we'll send somebody down to pick up your form. The next day on the front page of the Atlanta Constitution Journal, it says student leader from Fort Valley State University running against the governor of Georgia. That was Jimmy Carter. You know what? But I was too crazy to say I can't run against the governor. If my leaders like Julian and all of them say you can run, so I ran. And all of a sudden buses were not available. We had to get church buses and all, and I'll make it shorter, but Zell Miller was the executive director then of the Democratic Party. They didn't tell me we get to speak. We showed up in Americus, Georgia, where it normally was 30 miles from Fort Valley. They moved it to Americus, 10 miles from Plains, Jimmy Carter's hometown. And then of course, from there, we said, okay, we got in our buses, we got there. But the amazing thing, you know, Kevin, when we got there, they wouldn't let me speak because I said I had to be there to register early. Jimmy Carter beat me by 15 votes. Wow. And I was the SGA president, he was the sitting governor. I had one church bus that broke down with 25 students on it. We would have won that election, but I'm happy it didn't happen because I think Jimmy Carter is one of the greatest leaders we had. And from there, I had a full ride to go to Ohio State or go to Georgia State because Julian and those in Atlanta came to Atlanta, and John L. Johnson, all of them mentored me, Maynard. And now you know the rest of the story. So from seeing these great leaders, I wanted to follow in their footsteps. And Atlanta has been phenomenal. I would take nothing for Atlanta because the leadership in this city, the men and women really have inspired me. And that's pretty much what led me to the start until we got to the 100. We can talk about that, but thanks to Nate Goldston and his leadership, we started the 100 Black Men. There were about 34 of us who were chartered members to create this organization. But all of that, again, was I never believe I can't, because the adults who mentored me and who said you can, I believed them. And that's why I say to young people, if you believe you can, you can. If you believe you can't, you can't. It's a matter of what you believe. And my attitude is I can do anything. I will never give up.
So what would you say was sort of the first mentor that you had outside of the family? Like, who was your first mentor and what impact did they have on your life?
Well, the first mentor was a person by the name of G.J. Lee. Gerald Lee was my chemistry professor. And when we were in his class, what was so phenomenal, as I said, we didn't have all the top equipment, but Gerald Lee could invent almost anything. And in our classes, if we didn't have the equipment, he would make it himself. And he said to do the same thing. So he was one who taught us, don't come here complaining, just get the work done. So I remember Gerald Lee. My father, of course, I watched him. And while he was my father, growing up in Toccoa, Georgia, we were only 10% at the time. But the amazing thing, my dad and the business owners all got together, and whoever they endorsed ended up winning the election because that 10% voted in block. So that influenced me. Then there was another handyman that worked for my father. And I tell people the story that my dad told him to take me down and get my, quote, learner's license. Now, I just turned 16. And his name was Billy Latin. And Billy was a handyman, and I used to watch him on the weekend. He'd bury his miseries in the bottle on the weekend, but during the week, he was a good handyman. We were on our way down, and he said, Billy, and Billy would always do that. He said, boy, you know you can drive. You've been driving down the mountains with me. He said, you get out here, and your little rusty butt better go take this driver's exam, or I'm going to make you walk all the way back. Now, back in those days, you had to go way across town. And so I went down, I waxed it out. And Billy was just as proud. And so what Billy said to me in the car, he said, now you go back and tell Tom you want a car. I went back, my father gave me a car, but here's another guy, and one of his daughters a lawyer, one of his daughters went on to get a PhD, but while he drowned himself in the bottle on the weekends, he believed in us young folks, and you understand then, you don't have to have a degree, you don't have to have a big title to be a mentor, you just have to believe in young people.
Are there any other of your mentors that stand out that had just played a fundamental role in who you are today?
Right. There's the late John Dale Johnson. When I came to Atlanta, I was a youth director for the NAACP while I was a student at Georgia State University. And so John Dale got me involved, and she moved me through several areas. As a matter of fact, when the national office kicked the Atlanta branch out, I was one of 5 people selected to help reorganize the Atlanta branch of the NAACP. I served on their board for 32 years. Julian was a phenomenal mentor for me, and I traveled with Julian. Julian taught me about speeches. He'd take speeches and take a paragraph here and there, and I said, that works. But Julian Bond and his wit, and he's one of the greatest leaders I think Atlanta ever had, and Ben Brown was another one of those who really guided me. And Maynard Jackson, let me tell you, that man was bigger than life. But the reason why I loved about Maynard, even when I came to Atlanta, they got us all involved, but I would give speeches in my earlier days as a national chair. And Maynard would send me a little note. And he said, and on several occasions, he'd fly in and introduce me, which, man, that was something. But he sent me a note and said, brother leader, next time, instead of saying it that way, you might want to try this way. And, I followed all of that. And then Tom Palmer, who was my dean at Fort Valley, he was always Cool Hand Luke. Because when I was SGA president with challenges, Tom was so calm, he kept me calm. And so I learned from him the whole issue about patience. And then as you look through, Sam Nunn was a phenomenal mentor of mine. Because what I learned from Sam Nunn was if he made a promise on Sunday night, he kept that promise unless information came to change his mind. He'd let the people know he made the commitment. He found different reasons he was going to change his mind, but he also taught me about integrity. And Sam was the kind of guy that when I worked for the U.S. Senate, our goal was if you ever got anything over a gift of 100, you had to report it. Sam's, his whole process was anything over 35, you report, but if you're smart, you report every penny. I learned all of that from these great men and from some great women who made a difference in my life. And now I still think about that. Herman Russell and Jesse Hill taught me a lot about business, even though my father was an entrepreneur. Those folks taught me a lot. So being in Atlanta and even around the 100, you learn so much because you're never too old to learn. Andrew Young, I did an internship in his office. Man, it's like living the life. Being in Atlanta, Georgia, with all these great leaders. One of my greatest friends and leaders, Dr. C.T. Vivian. I mean, this guy, he would put you to shame. He could run up and down stairs, but I mean, it's seeing that's made a difference. And then one last person I really have to say was William Sonny Walker. When I ran for president of 100 Atlanta, I've only been defeated one time in the 100. I lost by one vote to Sonny Walker. One vote. And Maynard and Bill Cameron said, well, we didn't come because we knew you had won the election. We lost by one vote. So I tell young people, one vote can be the same as 1,000 votes, but my commitment I showed to the organization next time I won with 87% of the vote. You never give up, you never give out, but I stayed committed. And so Sonny was a phenomenal leader, the late Sonny Walker, who was president before me, and I got elected right after Sonny. But all of that is that they're people and mentors again, and the people who helped me weren't necessarily the people who had the titles, had the big bank accounts. These were people who cared. And that's why now, Kevin, if I go to a hotel, the doorman, the bellman, the people at the front desk are just as important as the general manager and others, because you have to respect people and their careers. And so through my life, there were people who didn't have titles, but always poured into me. And that's why today, and I can't forget my mom. My mom taught me that you believe and you care. And she taught me house rules. She said, I don't care who your friends' parents are. I don't care if they're in jail, out of jail. I don't care what kind of money they make. As long as your friends live by the house rule, they're welcome in this house. And if any of my friends came and needed shoes or clothes, one of me and my other 5 siblings were gonna give it up. So my mother taught me compassion. But so she was my mother, but a mentor. So with all of that, I've been blessed through segregation, through all of this, to keep my feet planted and understand that the money and success I may have made, it could be gone tomorrow. My health, I've had my challenges over life. I'm here today because God kept me here. So you have to understand that we're here for a reason. And that's all of that has made me who I am today, Kevin.
So you have a lot of mentors on this discussion, tuning into this discussion. What would you tell them as the reason why they should commit and continue to mentor our young people?
Let me tell you, one, we have to understand that all through life, even when I was growing up, they didn't call it mentoring, but they were there in the barbershops and all. Even in my book, The Miracles of Mentoring, I talked about how the people in the barbershop, those who are mentoring, understand that you do create miracles because people paved the way for us. And so we have to do the same for the young people who follow us. And so mentoring really helps young people to dream their dreams and make their dreams a reality. Mentoring helps young people to know that there are caring people who are there for them. And so by us giving back and making a difference, we make a difference in this world. And we have to all understand we have an obligation. Some folks think, okay, I'll take them to a sporting event and that'll be it. No, you pour into young people, they pour back into you and to others, because mentoring is not just about what we do for young people. We have to remember these young people make better men out of men. And so working with the young men and young ladies really makes a difference. And so as we look at what's going on in our society today, to those mentors, take the time. I've never hung out in nightclubs. I may go play a little bid whist. I used to and still do a little bit now. But I use, the different organizations I've been involved in, I'd rather give back to people. I'd rather do that and work with young folks because I understand God has spared me. I had one of the deadliest cancers 31 years ago, and I beat it. And all of us need to understand we've had challenges in life, and the Supreme Being creates the way for us. And so if we want to make life better and our communities better, then we have a responsibility to our young people to work in the school systems as the 100 of Atlanta does, and to work with these young people. And there's a reward for us just as a reward for the young people.
Tell us a little bit about sort of your day-to-day activities as chairman of the 100 Black Men of America, and then sort of running your business enterprise. What does a day look like for you?
Kim, it's a challenge. I tell you, I own 6 businesses. I have a little bit north of 400 employees. I'm in about 14 states. This is my 26th year for one of my companies, and last year was my 25th year for my companies. And I've been blessed in those, and my wife and I give back 1/3 of what we make. But my day starts about 6 a.m. I don't care where I am in the world. 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, my body clock wakes me up anywhere in the world. But I get up in the morning. One of the first things that I do, and it still gets back to my good friend, Dr. Miles Monroe, who said the most valuable real estate in the world are the graveyards, where people went to their graves with talent, skills, and all, and didn't give back. And he says you have to die empty. I get up every morning trying to empty my life, whether it's working with my employees and making sure they're set, negotiating with governmental entities, meeting with corporate execs. I do a lot of that around the country. And the next thing though, it's amazing and people don't understand, but you know, as the chair of 100 of Atlanta, being the chair is another job. And I spend so many hours per week working with our team, having to go to meetings with corporate and foundation executives, having to work with legislators, working with governmental entities, but it's a commitment you make. Once you make that commitment, you have to stay engaged. And so for me, my whole days are full. And I never thought from this COVID-19, I said, okay, I'll be working from home. This is about my 7th month from sheltering in at home, and my staff is working virtually except for one company because we run part of Modern Mobility. I am on so many Zoom calls. I tell you, it's amazing, but the key thing is responsibility is responsibility. So I have a responsibility for my team and my employees because they're dependent on me. So I have to make sure that the money is there, and I've never missed a payroll in 26 years. So I have to be there to make sure they're there. With the 100, I made a commitment. And so I have to work, I can't complain. I have to be there to do the work, to be available. And you know, as chair, you can have staff, you can have team leaders, but a lot of these corporations want to see, quote, the head of the organization. And so I do that. I have to fly, well, I haven't been on a plane since March 2nd, fly all over the country for events and functions, and then visiting our chapters. We have 98 chapters. So all of that is in there, but I am fortunate, one, that I have a supportive family. I have a phenomenal team of employees, but the other important thing is if you make a commitment, you have to keep it. So it's a full day, and included in all of that, I still have to make sure I have time. Even now, I have to do it on social media, or FaceTime or Zoom. I have 11 grandchildren, the love of my life. My next to my youngest was living with me, but when he started moving back and forth with a precondition, you simply say, okay, we're gonna Zoom it. But I love my children, I love my grandchildren, so that's important. So it's a full day with my family and still doing all of these things. But Kevin, you know, and for those who've been heads of Atlanta and those are heads of organizations, it's a sacrifice, but it's a good sacrifice to make a difference.
So for our college students that are tuning in, when you were back at the Fort Valley State University, could you envision where you are today, or what was your plan when you were on campus at Fort Valley, and how did that plan change along the way?
Well, when I first went to Fort Valley, you know, on our campuses back then, I started in 1968 at Fort Valley. I was actually a fellow. They gave me a scholarship to come to Fort Valley. I had basketball scholarships at major white colleges and some other HBCUs, but I was going to Fort Valley because all of my teachers and my brother had gone there before me. But I tell you, going to Fort Valley, I saw the upperclassmen demonstrating. When I went there in 1968, the upper class women had to be in their dorms by 10 o'clock. Everybody complained about the food, and then we complained about having professors, and it wasn't about them being international, it's that we didn't understand some of their language in the classroom. So we demonstrated to make a difference. And so I learned from the first day on campus that these upperclassmen were just like mentors too, following them. So I got engaged on how do I do my part to make a difference. And so I did that. I was engaged. I was in the Glee Club. I was involved. I pledged Omega Psi Phi fraternity. I did all of the various things. But the key to it was staying engaged and involved. And so I say to students, one of the main reasons why I've been able to be successful and get a lot of the things that I've done, I volunteered. Because that's the way people get to notice you, people get to see you. So I was a volunteer. I worked in the community-based organizations. I went out in the community and worked. We created the Citizens and Students Committee for a Better Community, because when I went to Fort Valley, there was only one Black elected official. And so we got involved in registration, voter education, voter participation. We did all kinds of things. We went to the local schools and we were tutors in the classroom. You know, I got my minor, as I said, in pure math. And one of the biggest challenges was teaching our young people about math and science. And so all of that was good. We coexisted together. We competed between fraternities and sororities, but at the end of the day, we knew we were students of Fort Valley State University. We were African Americans, and we were united, and we were together. And so my first recommendation to our collegiate: be engaged, be involved, and make a difference. Because while you're on that campus, the things that they're teaching you and you're exposed to is preparing you for the greater community, not just being in a classroom, but making a difference in your community. And remember, while we have a diverse population of students that come from different walks of life, but to my African-American collegiate, you were born Black, you're gonna live Black no matter what community, and you're gonna die Black. And so never run away from your Blackness, always work with everybody, but understand you've got to be proud of who you are and whose you are. And so that's what I teach my children. They've read all of these history books and those motivational books about us and our Blackness. Know who you are first before you start venturing into other areas. And that's why we created the African American History Challenge over 33 years ago in the 100 of America. And we have white students, Hispanic students, all who've learned about us and competed. So that's my first thing. Do something. One, you got to hit the books. You got to go to class. But the other thing is, be a volunteer and get engaged and make a difference. And don't forget that there are young people near you in those local middle school, elementary, and high school who can use your talent, your skills, and intellectual capacity.
Yeah, and it seems like earlier you mentioned that you thought you would be a math teacher. So like for students, go in with a plan, but also be open, because you never know where those people that you volunteer with, work with, where that path will lead you. So have some flexibility and be open. Don't feel like you're a failure if you study math and you decide to do something else. Just be open-minded. I mean, have focus, but then be open-minded as well.
So true. I started majoring in pure math my freshman year. I got a minor in pure math because I took all these advanced courses. And the one thing that got to me coming down there, I saw all my friends hanging out, having fun, going to parties. And I'm in lab. I work my butt off in the classroom. So finally I decided I'm going to change my major. And you know what? Sociology, and today you can go into almost any discipline. And you can, I almost went to law school. I was accepted in the law school at Emory. But then I said, look, I've been to undergrad, I've been to graduate school. I'm not doing 3 more years. And so, and then I said I would have been a broke lawyer because I would have been giving away my services. That's why I got good friends like you. And I just call on my attorney friends like you and get me some free play. But the thing about it is, it's okay going in thinking what you want to do, and it's okay to change your major. And really, a lot of things I did was based on my professors I had who influenced me and the study of people. And so when I went to graduate school, it was in urban administration and then criminal justice administration. But you can make a difference. And so don't be upset if you get in school and decide to change your major, as long as you focus on what works for you, not what somebody else says you ought to do. Because the good thing about business, and Oprah Winfrey says it so much, you know, where's your passion? And if you follow your passion, if you can have a career in the area of your passion, if you prepare for the area of your passion, you can have a career there. And for me, working with people, I stayed 22 years in public service working for Jimmy Carter. I worked for George Busby. I was the first African-American executive for the Democratic Party of Georgia. And then I went to work for Sam Nunn and stayed with Sam for 16 years. And then I decided after those 22 years in public service, I wanted a real job, so I created it. But I had fun. I had 31 plus African-American multi-millionaires I helped to develop, helped make a difference, represented Sam Nunn. And again, being first didn't mean anything to me, but what you do when you're there. I was the first African-American state director for any U.S. senator, it was about making a difference. So my staff was 43% African-American, 55% women. I had gay and lesbian staff members because in my leadership role, I had to practice what I preached. And so if I were not there, how can I talk about other people not doing that? And so all of that, the compilation of my life is living the life that you would want for yourself, making that available to others when you're in a position of authority and power.
I know we all think about sort of our legacy that we have when we leave this earth of ours. What is the legacy that you would like to leave, and what are maybe one or two of your most proud successes that you've accomplished thus far?
Well, my legacy, and we just lost a great man last week, our founding president of the 100 Black Men of America, Dr. William Haley, phenomenal leader who was a founding member of the 100 Black Men of New York, Inc., the first chapter, then the Newark, New Jersey chapter, then the LA chapter. And then Nathaniel Golston came after him. But those gentlemen were phenomenal. Dr. Haley, a committed man who delivered over 8,000 babies in this country, but a man who never stopped. Then you look at Nate, businessman who put his money into the 100, who worked, who mentored, supported HBCUs. So what I want my legacy to be is one that people will say I made a difference. When I look at the 100, again, I didn't run and I didn't come back. I served 10 years, 5 different terms elected in my first run as the head of the 100. I left for 13 years, and because of challenges, and Nate Golston and others saying that we really hope you'll come back. And then Al Dotson calling me, and so we came back, not coming back because the legacy was set, but we came back to make sure this great organization is going to survive for decades to come. And so with that, my legacy one in the 100 is one that I'm proud of. When I came in, we were on a budget for about $170,000 a year. In 2 years, I moved to $2 million a year. What they see is what they'll be is the theme that was developed in my first year, thanks to the help from Nike working with us. I got a $3 million grant over 3 years that we did started grants program for our chapters. Real Men Given Real Time. And then from there in 1997, I took the organization international into Africa. And even before that, as we move, our first strategic plan, which helped us grow, just like Sonny and I did the first strategic plan for the Atlanta chapter. And as I look at the things that we were able to do, there were only 43 chapters when I came in. When I left, we had 202 chapters of the 100. So the majority of chapters in the 100 were done under my administrations. So I look at that not for bragging, I look at that for the progress of our organization. And coming back, the amazing support we've gotten, Kevin, in the 3 years in this term, we've been able to raise $8.6 million for this organization. And so now having young leaders like yourself and Dr. Wes Bellamy and Richard Webb, I see a future, and that's what my next part of legacy is, making sure that you young leaders are in the role, just as they did for me in Atlanta, and just as they did nationally, are in position to take over and to keep our organization moving. But the legacy has been the hundreds of thousands of young people who are in our program, being able to stand up, and I've worked with every president except this one. I worked with his administration, but every president from Jimmy Carter to this administration, because I refused 3 times to go meet at the White House with President Trump because I was not going to be in a photo op, but I've met with some key people in his administration to work to make a difference. He met with the vice president here in Atlanta, but it's about making a difference and being a leader. It's not about Republican or Democrat. It's about what we do for our people. And so when I look at the legacy and when I move on, because this is absolutely my last term, which would have been 16 years when this term is up, that I would have headed up this organization out of its 34 years. The legacy is that we've been able to bring men together. We have some phenomenal men in this organization. We have some phenomenal young people. And I'm so proud of the Atlanta chapter for the Emerging 100 that we want to scale, the collegiates that we have around this country. So all of that said, my legacy for me is that being able to make a difference, working with a group of men and women who've been instrumental with us to make life better for our communities and our children, and working to ensure HBCUs is going to be strong. So with that, it continues, but not living on and resting on your laurels. It's understanding you got to work every day. And like Dr. Monroe said, you got to empty your life. So when I pass on, I want to be empty. I want to die empty, knowing I gave all I could back to my people, back to my community, and work to build a stronger bond for all of us.
That's awesome. I often hear and live by leadership is the willingness to fail publicly.
Right.
There is no cover. When you lead, if it goes wrong, you got to take it.
Go ahead.
So tell us about 1 or 2 times when there was sort of a mistake or something that you wish had turned out differently. And then most importantly, for the people watching, how do you respond and learn from those sort of mistakes to grow as a leader?
And I think your point is, how do you learn from those?
Mm-hmm.
I've had challenges. I don't call them failures. I call them challenges, because I look at challenges as opportunities. And so as I look through first in business, when I first got in business in transportation, we ran and all of the non-emergency transportation services for Fulton County government, did everything right. When I came in, the system was just terrible. We fixed the system, but on one occasion, one of my drivers was driving in North Atlanta, a 20-year vet with one of the top delivery companies in the world, and his bus hydroplane. Now, we had 2 incidents where people rented our bus. One was fatal. On this one challenge, though, a mother lost her life. And, it was heartbreaking. And the police ruled that that the bus driver was not at fault, but, we got sued. And the state of Georgia decided, after all of the stuff that had gone on, they weren't going to back that. And I had a 100 man, my lawyer, and we sued the state, and we had to go through changes. But at the end of the day, I won, and the state had to pay. But the lesson I learned was, in business, for example, always control your future. Don't let somebody else control your future. And while I was doing things and the state of Georgia was happy and Fulton County was happy, in that contract, I didn't have a mutual indemnification clause. As an attorney, you know what that means. I indemnified the county, and the county, with all of that money and all that attorneys, the head of the program wanted them to defend my company, but they refused to. So I had to pay my money and defend Fulton County government. But I learned my lesson, and I won. And so from that, in business, I learned you always control your destiny. From community service and from what I've done, there have been a lot of challenges. There are people that I believed in and trust, expected they were going to do the job. But the one thing I learned when you're even volunteering, and as you know, our roles, we're volunteers. I've learned that you dot the I's, cross the T's, and you always check and double check. One of the things I learned in my second term was that I had an executive director who was fighting with the CFO, who was fighting with the vice president for finance. And me and the board just took reports and found out later they weren't offsetting. You know, as people say, I was making it rain out there. I got $3 million from Nike. I got a million from General Motors. So the money was flowing in, but the person who was over finance didn't understand the FAR regulations and didn't offset. They, you know, you have to put on the books once a letter of commitment is made. You put the money on the books and then you offset. Well, they weren't offset. So it was looking like we were making, our financials were super. And you know what we've been through in some places. So but I learned at the end of the day that one, they did an automatic overdraft protection. I didn't, you know, again, you trust the people. But what I learned at the end of the day was that you got to check everything. And I do that in business and everything. You got to double check, you got to validate. And if you're the leader, you got to know that whatever you've been given, you can stand on it. And so again, I brought in an independent, one of the largest Black firm in the US, accounting firm, because I met them while I was on the board for the NAACP. They did a pro bono review. And the good thing, because I thought it was important, because I shared with our corporate partners, all our members, they did a review that there was no improprieties, and they explained what the challenge was. But what we found out is you got to have leadership where everybody's working together. From that, I read every report. I ask the questions, because when, as a leader, and you know how it is with you, if I say, this is it, I've asked the questions in advance. And so, but then those were opportunities to understand you can't be too busy. And we've had challenges. I've had members that I thought were friends, but there are people who get, you know, they have a lust for leadership and want to be at the top, but they don't understand you got to work to get to the top. If you want credit, you get credit based on doing work, not based on having a title. And so that's my advice, even to the leaders, the young leaders on campus, whatever. Is understand one, you got to work hard as a leader. You have to build more leaders. You have to make sure you share responsibilities. But at the end of the day, the buck stops with the person at the head. And still, instead of making excuses, you simply fix them. And that's the thing that I've done over the years. I fixed them first, and then I go back and deal with why did we get to where we were. But again, you learn. You just use those experiences. And I've learned over and over again to never go back. And once you learn from those experiences or challenges, it makes you stronger. It makes you better. And that's why my businesses have lasted as long as they have, because one, I also hire good people. And I'm not the highest paid in my company when it comes to payroll, but I own all the companies, so all my profits belong to me. So you have to let your ego go. Don't have to be the highest paid. You don't have to be the one who makes decisions. That's why Al Dotson and I get along so well, because Al and I, he'll do things before I even get around to doing them. And it's about being comfortable as a leader, that I trust Al. I trust the majority of our leaders on the board. I trust our leadership throughout the country. But at the end of the day, I trust our membership to make the right decision. And that's why I've always told folks, the members of the 100 will make the right decision. And whatever that decision is, that's the decision of the brotherhood of this organization.
So where time is winding down, but I have a couple critical questions, I think.
I'll be sure. Okay.
One is, you just mentioned the challenges that you've had in leadership. How do you deal with difficult conversations in a setting like that?
Well, some conversations you understand, you don't just hold them in public, because like Michelle Obama and those say, when they go low, I go high. You don't reduce yourself to the level of those who are trying to really bring you down, who are trying to show you in a different vein and in a different light. Those people who really know me over the years, they know I'm caring. They know I invest my time. And if there's anything I can do to help people, I'm going to do it. And so when you're being challenged publicly, you always have to keep your cool. You have to be emphatic. You have to be factual. But at the end of the day, if you are letting somebody act like they want to be a fool and you're being a real leader, then usually members come together and they shut that person down. And what people have to understand, we're brothers. You can't be a brother in good times, and then when you want to take on a person, you disrespect. You gotta respect the individual. Have to understand, in my case, while I may be national chairman, for me, you are my chairman in the chapter that I'm a member of. And so I have a responsibility, as I've had with every president who came. I was a fourth president and then fourth chairman of the 100 of Atlanta. And I've worked to support every individual who's been in that leadership role. And that's what we have to do, Kevin, is respect. If we as Black people, and especially as Black men, cannot be respectful in our disagreements, then we hurt ourselves and we're not true to what we want to have the broader community do to us and do with us. And so with that, you deal, but you also have to be a courageous leader. You don't back down when you know you're right. But the other side of that is, if it's getting out of hand, you simply say, let's have an offline discussion. Let's you and I talk and we'll come back to the group. Now, if the person doesn't want to do that, then the rest of the members will see and understand it is not about the organization, it's about them.
Mm-hmm. Do you believe that leaders are made or born? That this is a question from one of our students.
I think leaders are developed. There's some people, you know, Maynard Jackson used to just, I used to love about the late Mayor Maynard Jackson. He always used to introduce me as a natural born leader. I'm sure he did that for others. And it's great when you hear the elders say that, but you got to earn the leadership, I think, brand. And so you earn that title of a leader. As I said, real leaders don't seek followers, they inspire them. You have inspirational leaders. You have positional leaders. You have people who, when the lights are on, the cameras are rolling, they want to be a leader. But a real leader has to also be a good follower and a real leader for me is a servant leader. And so you got to make sacrifices and you learn that as you go. And so with that, as I said a little earlier, the measure of a real leader is how many leaders did you help to create? And as a leader, you got to understand leadership is only a title. It's what you do in your body of work. And so, no, I don't think that leaders are born. I think leaders learn the leadership practices and principles along the way. And again, you have to be a good servant. And that's the thing that worked for me in the NAACP. When I came to Atlanta, I volunteered everywhere for everybody, got to know different people. They got to know me. I never served on the national board of the 100 before I became the national president and chair. When Nate Golston became the president, I came in and when the 100 of America started running all conventions, I was his convention chair 2 years before I got elected. And so I worked for Nate. I found and raised money. And so the people saw my service and saw my work. And so what I say to the young people, just keep working, volunteer, and you'll be able to make it anywhere, and people will recognize your leadership.
Chairman Dortch, looks like we lost Kevin. We'll see if we can get him back in, or we'll go ahead and wrap. Just give us just a second, see if he's coming back in. There he is.
Still muted.
Yeah, so I got disconnected. Are we still, yeah. We're still on together. So I had two other items. One is there a lesson that you learned later in life that you wish you had known early on when you were on college campuses being a leader? And if so, what is that lesson?
Well, the lesson I learned later is I came out because of growing up in a segregated society with parents and community that surrounded me. I was pretty talented because in my school, just as much as we competed athletically, we competed academically. My closest friend beat me by 0.2 percentage points in being the valedictorian of my class. But I celebrated. He was my closest friend because we competed academically, even during segregation. And so when I went to college, you know, I slipped a little bit, not in terms of grades, but I could have done much more than what I did in the classroom, but I got so involved in so many other things. So my lesson is never get too busy to remember why you're where you are, because everything you do starts with education, whether it's a formal education, whether some of the smartest people in the world I've met from people who got street sense and street education, and I respect all of them. So one, I guess I could have applied myself more. I don't know if it would have made any difference in my career, but I know then, which in graduate school, I didn't get anything less than an A until my last semester in graduate school. And the reason why I got that B was, you know, I was back and forth because, you know, I was back and forth on a lot of issues and things that we were having to deal with politically. But I was upset. I got a B. You know, I wanted to have all A's, but it didn't change where I was. So being competitive. And so with that, no real regrets other than that may have changed my trajectory in life otherwise. The other thing I got lucky. I had one friend, and I know folks have done it, because I had such a strong background in math. One of my fraternity brothers, he had tried to pass a math course, a basic math course, had failed twice, and he had to pass that course in order to graduate. And he came to me and begging me. And back then, you didn't have to go to class every day. I didn't think about how crazy it was. So I went ahead and went to the class for him. And I go up every now and then so the professor wouldn't really know my name, and they call his name. His name was Eddie Collins. Now, I'd answer to it. Some of the kids knew I wasn't Eddie. And I got him a C, because my point was, if I go ahead and get him an A or B, they're going to be suspicious. I got him a C. I did him a favor. He got upset. He didn't get nothing but a C. I said, I got you out of college. That was a big mistake in life. If I thought about it, I could have been expelled from college. But, you know what they say in Omega, friendship is essential to the soul. But sometimes you better use common sense to my collegiate students. Don't put your future in jeopardy. I should have just tutored him more instead of going in the classroom. But, you know, you learn those things in life.
I like that first lesson. I'm a big Lakers fan, and so I'm watching the finals. And they ran this story from when LeBron played in Miami under Pat Riley, and they were saying that a common theme, and one of the things that Pat is known for is this saying, keep the main thing the main thing.
Right.
And so that's what you were saying about the students, like make sure you keep the main thing the main thing and don't get caught in all the distractions.
You got it, because if you don't knock those books out, get those grades, the things you want to do sometimes get hampered. You know, because if you think about it, it used to be high school diplomas meant a lot. Now, even undergraduate degrees from college, when people start to judge those, and then you look at, so life has to be a continuing learning process. Yeah, I take different courses sometimes when I want to see them, like, you know, even like now, I'm reading, you know, I've completed Just Mercy, Brian Stevenson, which is phenomenal when you look at the things that he's done with the Justice Project. And of course, his movie was a very good one. I bought all my grandkids the movie for them to watch because I want them to be exposed. And then, you know, one of my good friends, he has a new book. I just got it. It's called Up From Nothing. Phenomenal, John Bryant's phenomenal young brother leader. When I look at his pathway to where he is, his other book, How the Poor Can Save Capitalism. John's a phenomenal thinker, a leader. I try to stay in touch with what he's doing. You know, let me tell you, Lerone Bennett, first his book was Before the Mayflower, but I really wish young people would read Forced into Glory, because it's history and then it's his story. And so what I learned and for those on, in particular our collegiate, Google the third stanza of the Star Spangled Banner. And Kaepernick stood, I mean, he kneeled because of injustice in this country. But I tell people now, I will stand for the flag. I will defend my nation, but I will never, ever, ever sing the Star Spangled Banner, because one, it was written by a slave owner. He was one of the worst DAs in the history of Washington, D.C. And his third stanza celebrates slaves who have been slaughtered, who came back from Canada to basically get their families and take them back to Canada. And what we were taught was that the British government was the worst government, but the British controlled Canada at the time. And if slaves were able to escape from the US and get to Canada, they were given refuge. And they refused to let slave owners come get them from Canada. And they were fighting at Fort McHenry for those slave owners to come get their families, take them back to Canada to safety. And that was when the Star Spangled Banner was finished, and that third stanza celebrates our slaughter. And so therefore, it wasn't until 1931 that became the national anthem. But so how could Tebow kneel, Tim Tebow, while playing pro football, protesting abortions, and when Kaepernick kneeled, then all of a sudden he was a bad guy? And people have to remember, it was 10 years ago, they didn't even come out for the Star Spangled Banner. So it's about history and his story, and you have to know the truth. And so I defend this nation, will always defend. This is, no matter what the problems are, and we have problems, it is one of the greatest nations in the world. And I've visited so many countries, Kevin. So what we have to do is work to make it better. Dr. King and all of the ambassadors he had, from Ambassador Young and the people who died and gave their lives, and Dr. C.T. Vivian, John Lewis, they worked to make life better for us. And our young people need to understand things weren't handed to us. These people sacrificed, and we continue to sacrifice, and they've got to sacrifice for generations to come. And as we complain about police brutality, and we got to stop it, we got to stop the fact that we're killing more of our people 10 times, many times over, than police are killing us. And so if Black lives matter, every life has got to matter. And in addition to killing the people we're shooting and stabbing, and the rapes that are taking place, and the beatings to our own people, we've got to stop that, so that, one, as a society, we didn't come from a violent history. We were brought to this nation against our will, but at the end of the day, we made this country what it is, just like the Native Americans and the Asian Americans. And so to our young leaders, remember, we have to make it better if it's not what you want. And that's why voting on November 3rd is critical. Like I said, I lost by 1 vote the first time I ran for President of Atlanta. But you know what? Every vote counts. So I know your screen froze, but let me just say one other thing while we're waiting. To our collegiate that may be on, to the brothers of the 100, I really want to salute you and thank you and proud of you. I think the work that our collegiate do with our members of the senior chapter of the 100 and working hand in hand, you really make a difference for us in what you're doing on your campus and what you're doing in our community. And I know our chairman, Gooch, and the board and the members really value and appreciate you, and know that we're all here to support in any way we can, and anything we can do to help you succeed. And so with that, just count on the 100 and know that you've got mentors, and us, we call ourselves maybe your big brother or older brothers, who are here to work and support you. This has been an honor to work with our chairman, Gooch. He is, again, I am so proud of him. I've watched him and watched him grow. And so for the young people, understand you get noticed by the work you do. Kevin, you've done a phenomenal job for this chapter. And to the brothers in the chapter, let's continue to work together. Let's work hand in hand. And don't forget, one, we're wrapping up the census, young people. You've got to make sure we get counted. The deadline for registering to vote is passed. Now we got to do education, and then we got to have voter participation. And we are doing training to have more people work as poll workers. And if you're interested, just check with the 100 Black Men of America or check with the local NAACP chapter. Will support you. But here's my chair back. But I wanted to say again, Kevin, thank you for your leadership. And I know this is going to be a phenomenal series that you continue to bring together. And, you know, anytime, again, you need me, I'm there for you and for the chapter and for the young people we serve, because without the young people, there really would be no need for us having the 100, because we're committed to mentoring and working with our young people.
Well, thank you, brother. I'm sorry that I'm having some technical difficulties over here, but it's been a great time talking to you today. This has been phenomenal. You know that you mean the world to me. You've played a great role in sort of my life, my leadership. And so I just thank you for this time. And it was only right to kick it off with you, our leader. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And I hope all those that tuned in got something from this. So thank you very much, and we'll be in touch soon.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you for the leadership.